From our perspective, looks at the lives and behaviors of millennials, Generation Z, and the changes that are happening in our 21st century and the innovators that are making it happen. We will explore trends, technology, music, fashion, social media, business, science, the arts, faith, and lifestyle. We would look at their interests, how are they changing our 21st century, and what is causing market disruptions, and what does that mean? From our perspective, it's not just another talk show. There will be roving reporters from the Caribbean, Europe, and North America. This will be a show of learning, exploring, questioning, listening, and creative ideas. So come join us on Comcast, Verizon, and online. In this episode, we are highlighting news outtakes from 2017 to 2021. We will be hearing the perspectives from two generations, a baby boomer and a Gen-Xer, who are giving insight from their perspective. As we know, in 2018, we had Hurricane Maria, which took place in Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rico was out electricity for 11 months. And we also look at 2019, there was a Hurricane Dorian that slammed Bahamas, and it actually was the worst natural disaster in the country's history. So I want to ask my guests, what were, seeing these visuals and knowing, this history, being part of this history, it's recent history in our lives, what were your thoughts on that?
So I think that, of course, it was devastating to those countries, but I think it's it kind of leads to a bigger problem when we talk about global warming and these natural disasters that are occurring more frequently. And I think it was yesterday, St. Louis, Missouri. This is almost May, had a snowstorm and all of their baseball was canceled. So that is not normal. So I think that, we really need to take a look at global warming a little bit more serious and do things to counteract what's happening in our environment. I think the aid or I should say lack thereof, to Puerto Rico was embarrassing. Puerto Rico is, of course, U.S. territory, but they're brown people and they were treated very different, I think, than if that were to be something that were to happen in the United States of America, I should say, within the states. So I think that was an eye-opening. I think it was kind of the beginning of a previous administration, and we saw how it was handled, and I think that was really eye-opening and very disturbing. So I think something needs to be done, and these are just beginning points, letting us know that we need to make change.
We know in this world, there will always be disasters. Ever since the creation of time, the flood, Noah's flood, there have been situations where the world itself was threatened by plagues, as we're experiencing this COVID-19 presently. So this is part of the way the planet is, groaning. Mother Nature, as Jamila said, we know that the global warming is an issue, but if you look back in history, things of this nature has always happened. My take on it, though, as Jamila said as well, was the response for Puerto Rico, as it was very limited and very look at other situations that happened on the continent of the United States where federal aid was quickly administered. With Bahamas, being a tourist as well as a place where people bank, it was sad to see that kind of devastation for the natives of the Bahamas. But as I said previously, we experienced global disasters from time immemorial.
My favorite couple.
The 2018 royal wedding, and then 2021 Oprah interview. I mean, those were two different years, but definitely strong, worldwide reflections on this. So 2018 royal wedding. This is your favorite couple, Jamala.
It is one of my favorite couples. I've always been really intrigued with the royals. I was up early Saturday morning watching the funeral of Queen Elizabeth's husband, and I've just always been kind of intrigued with the royals. And Harry has always been one of my favorites. And of course, I have a very myopic point of view, right? I don't know them. I've never met them, so it's just my perception of who they are and what they stand for. But I've always loved Prince Harry. I've always admired his mom and just their humanitarian efforts, and just very down to earth. And I like the fact that he did what he wanted to do. Like, he loved Meghan Markle despite all of the uproar from his family. He still stood his ground, because at the end of the day, no one has to live in these lives but us. So a lot of times people make decisions in life and they live their lives miserably because they're so concerned about what other people will think. And I think that is it's a prison to live in, right? Like, you have to live your truth and be your authentic self. And that is exactly what Prince Harry is doing here. He's living his life his way. And I couldn't be happier for him.
And, we're talking about, again, there's nothing new under the sun. So
that's right.
Uncle was, remember, since you're into the royals.
With Camilla?
No, with his.
Well, that was his dad.
Right, Edward. Was it, who basically married the American divorcee?
Right.
Give up his throne as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's, that's a reflection as well on that. And then the whole press thing with his mom, how they became so very aggressive with Meghan.
Because she wanted out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a lot of, we're talking about there's nothing new under the sun, but then also to the fact of, the power of a seed, and the reason why it's that theme I'm going with is that, in scripture, it talks about, the power of a seed, the smallest seed being a mustard seed that can grow into a really big plant. Here it is that a simple thing as love between two couples can cause such a large visual and reaction globally.
Yeah.
Be it for race, be it because she is of mixed race, or she's an American, he's a prince, he shouldn't have been marrying her, all these different things. And it's or in the same sense, it made so many young girls in the Commonwealth feel so emboldened, because they're realizing that they can be that too. So what is your feeling on that?
Growing up as a baby boomer and knowing some of the stories that was pretty much introduced to us, Snow White, where the prince in the White Horse will come and rescue her. The other lady with the long hair, Rapunzel, let down your hair. These are things that I grew up hearing and understanding, that young ladies want to marry that prince. This is 2018, but it has always been something to me that females, young ladies, want that type of love where they live happily ever after. But apparently that doesn't work in real life. That being said, England has been a very powerful country when it comes to ownership of different areas in the planet. We've been Trinidad and Tobago, different islands in the Caribbean have been under the regime of the royal family. And why I'm getting at this is that it's high time that people of our youth should be accepted into that fray based on how they have conquered, how they have pretty much controlled different countries in Africa, India, Caribbean, where people of our hue live. So to me, it's a long time coming. That's how I look at the wedding. And I know they have to have a clap back or some sort of pushback on this, but I believe it's something that God ordained and now it's here.
Yeah, I mean, love is the most powerful force in the universe, period, hands down. It is inevitable. And, you know, and like you said, there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, there are love stories in the Bible that went against everything, went against the law, went against everything, but it still happened because it's love. And there isn't a force more powerful than that. So, you know, this won't be the first time that it's not the first time that the royals had this kind of attention on an interracial wedding, and it won't be the last time. It won't, because, you know, love is just what it is. It's powerful.
And you said something really interesting, because, you know, you talk about it in the Bible, you know, love can make kings and break kings. You know, we look at King
Absolutely.
David. You know, King David went with Bathsheba, and the consequences of that was long term. The firm, I believe, is a term that they use in reference to who really controls the royals, you know, and, you know, Meghan was not happy in the sense that she referred to herself as having lost her voice.
Right.
And basically one of the things that she mentioned also too was that being a woman, that's how she made her career, her voice. You know, speaking and saying her mind and her piece. And they basically told her that, you know, you gotta dummy that down a bit, you know?
Yeah.
I
remember. Yeah, I remember seeing bits and pieces. And I mean, I think she said she was suicidal at some point. And that's sad. I mean, that's the worst thing that you can lose is your voice. When you don't have a voice, when you can't freely speak your mind and be free to make decisions, I mean, your life is not your own, right? Like, I mean, you are literally living in a bubble, or just so confined and constricted. Like, I can't imagine how she could go from, you know, a life in Hollywood to that. You know, people from the outside, it looks like, oh wow, she's a glamorous princess, and, you know, how awesome is that? But no, it was terrifying for her. So I think Oprah's, and I'm glad that she had the courage to come on Oprah and to share her perspective, you know, because you'll be surprised how, just as you said in the beginning, Carlene, sometimes just hearing someone going through something, and I guess at the time when you're going through it, you think you're the only one, right? You know, but bits and pieces of her story, you know, with not having a voice, was feeling trapped, all those things, and her now having the courage to come out and speak her piece. You know, I'm sure that was freeing to a lot of women who may have been in the same type of situation, and maybe gave someone else the courage to do something different, to help themselves, to save their lives. So, you know, I'm glad that she had the courage to come out and do the Oprah interview.
And I think what was important too was that Harry also supported that, because he
Absolutely.
also found his voice. He said, you know, because he lived in that bubble for so long, there was nothing for him to do the comparison. And then once he saw what that comparison could be, he realizing, wait a minute, we also trapped. He used the word trapped.
Yeah, he sure did. Yeah.
But in the same token, let me interject here. In the same token, based on the credentials of royalty, there has to be some sort of cocooning of your life. You're not normally living that type of freedom.
Correct.
So that being said, I understand what you ladies are saying, and I appreciate your candor. But in the same token, being a royal person, the bodyguards, the aloofness, even though you might mingle with your subjects, so to speak, you still have to have that reserved type of life. It's not a normal life. So that it goes with the territory.
Right.
And that's an excellent point that you're making, where in the sense that you can't really always speak everything. You may want to say everything, but you don't have a platform to do that. But you can still have some level of I think the restriction was probably a little at the higher, too much restriction versus it's a balance. There has to be some form of balance there.
Right. Absolutely.
Mary McLeod Bethune served on FDR's Black Cabinet, working as an activist for education and civil rights in the early 1900s. Bethune started a private school for African American students in Florida. You know, these are individuals who may not have had a lot, but what they had, the talent, the gifting, the strength, the power. I mean, just look at her. She exudes that, doesn't she? She just exudes a person who's I'm fighting for a cause.
Oh, Mary McLeod Bethune, yes, I'm very familiar with Miss Bethune. She is an honorary member of my illustrious sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So absolutely very familiar with her and her work.
And what else stands out about her work that you can say that you, now that she has passed almost, you're talking about 60 years plus, that you can say that she has left a legacy? What legacy would you think that she's left?
I mean, just a legacy for education and civil rights. I mean, my sorority was founded on women who are our platform. We have a big platform on education and civil rights as well. So I think what she stood for was for just giving African Americans an opportunity, right, for private school. That was unheard of in the early 1900s. So to have someone that was an advocate for us, especially a woman, especially a Black woman in that day and time, I mean, you had to be really strong and really have a voice to be able to break down those barriers, to be able to be effective in that time frame. So I am standing on her shoulders, right? Her voice and her courageousness is a part of why I'm able to do what I do today, because of women like her who went before me.
Right. Do you know who this woman is?
I don't. Oh, Stella McCarty. Okay.
So she is a local washerwoman in Harrisburg. And her story is so interesting that her mom got ill early on and she stopped school to take care of her. So she doesn't have a high school degree. And she continued being a washerwoman for all her life. And she saved a lot of money. And so her story is that McCarty drew global attention after it was announced in July 1995 that she had established a trust. A portion of her life savings would be left to the university to provide scholarships for deserving students in need of financial assistance. The amount was estimated at $150,000, wow. A surprising amount for a low-paid occupation. Even before dropping out of school, McCarty was taught to save money by her mother. She opened her first savings account at First Mississippi National Bank, and over the years, she opened several other accounts at various area banks, including Trustmark National Bank, which she appointed a trustee of her trust and executor of her estate. With the assistance of local attorney for whom she had done laundry and the bank's trust officer, using slips of paper and dimes to represent 10% share, McCarty set out the future distribution of her estate. She set aside one dime as 10% for her church, 10% for each 3 relatives, and the remaining 60% for Southern Mississippi. She stipulated that the funds should be used for students, preferably those who are of African American descent, who could not otherwise attend due to financial hardship. When news of McCarty's plan was made public, local leaders immediately funded an endowment in her honor.
It's so nice to meet you. Thank you so very much for taking the time to talk with us today. As you know, Miss Osceola's story is one of the greatest stories of this university and really in this country. And you were the first scholarship recipient from Miss Osceola, resulting from Miss Osceola's gift. So I'm hoping you could just talk a little bit about your memories of Miss Osceola and what that scholarship meant to you. So I guess first off, just tell me about maybe the first time you met Miss Osceola.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's just been always extremely important to me to be able to do anything I can to keep Miss Ola's memory alive and to represent her legacy as best I can. The first time I met Miss Ola was in Hattiesburg, and it was when it was like the formal presentation of the scholarship gift, and she's a very petite little lady. I'm 5 feet tall, and I may have been an inch or two taller, and she had a very little voice, but she had the biggest smile, and she was so welcoming. She instantly became family.
And when you were awarded the scholarship, what was that moment like?
When I found out about it, I was just totally amazed that somebody would work that hard to save that much money and then turn around and give it away.
It's certainly my pleasure, Stephanie, to see you receive notification of this first scholarship.
This is just a blessing from God, and I'm just so grateful.
Oh, it was unbelievable. It was absolutely unbelievable, because I remember we were reading it in the paper, the Hattiesburg American. My mom was reading about the gift, and she was like, "Oh wow, that is so wonderful." And at the time, we were looking for scholarship money. My mom is also a graduate of USM Graduate School, and she remembered how hard it was to pay off her student loans.
My mom's an educator, so I've always known that the value of an education is really, really important. But then again, I've often taken it for granted. But now it's more like, okay, I have an opportunity that not everybody has had. I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to do the best that I can.
I had no idea I was even being considered or anything. And it was, I mean, nothing short of a miracle. It was life-changing. It was life-changing.
What was your fondest memory of Osceola McCarty?
It was just that through everything, she was always comfortable where she was, and even with everything that happened, she came out of her shell. She was timid. She had a very little voice, but she had strong opinions, you know. And she learned to speak up, and I learned to speak up right along with her.
You mentioned as a scholarship recipient the importance of carrying on her legacy. What is her legacy to you?
Her legacy to me, to one, is to think of others before I think of myself, and most certainly hard work. Her work ethic. I just want to be able to continue to match her work ethic, and to show that if you go all in and you just give your best, that you can bless other people and you can touch other people in ways that you never imagined.
If you're talking to a Southern Miss student today, what would you most want them to know about Osceola McCarty?
She expects you to go to class. Her idea for giving a gift, she often said, is that she felt like adults would mess it up. That she wanted to invest in children. She wanted us to take advantage of opportunities that she didn't have. So I would tell a student to not take their education lightly. I don't know if it ever dawned on her that her name would be on a building, that her scholarship fund would continue to bless people, but she finished strong. She finished her life in a way, she lived so much more in those last years than she ever thought that she was going to do. And every shirt she washed, you know, every pair of pants she pressed, it all led up to those final years where she touched the world.
So that is amazing.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
These are people, yeah.
She lived a full life too.
Yes, she lived a full life, and she was honored by many politicians and she was just loved. She never married, she never had children. But you could just look at her and you could see that she's like, you know, all Jesus, right?
Yeah, she's glowing from the inside.
Yeah, glowing from the inside.
He compared his coaching style to the experience of competing in a relay race, where each person must run their leg of the race and pass the baton on. He often encouraged others to remember that no man is a god. Whatever one man can do, someone else can do better. His habit of giving back to his sport, of helping others, have left a legacy that is to be admired.
One of the kindest, gentlest, funniest men that I can remember. I mean, growing up as a child, I mean, if it were me, I would be like, geez, these kids are driving me nuts. But that was never his perspective. At least he didn't show it. But I mean, always there, always laughing, always taking us to the pool at Texaco to go swimming, and and probably one of the sweetest things is that he was such a loving husband to his wife. And you know, when you grow up with images of what a man is supposed to be, when you grow up with images of how a family is supposed to run, what the head of a household looks like, it just makes life so much easier for you. And I'm so glad that I had his example to see from a young age, in addition to my own parents. But of course, this was always good, just being surrounded by that. So, you know, he loved his Auntie Val for sure. So yes, he did.
Being the firstborn, being a bit own way, he stuck with me through thick and thin. And mommy as well, but daddy had a way about dealing with me, as I look back on him, in a way that gave me a chance to really become me. Through it all, the ups and downs that I found myself in living. So kudos to what you said, Jamila, but also kudos to me experiencing him firsthand. Yeah. It's hard to explain more than what you said based on just saying, I agree 100%. You love mommy. You show that in more ways than one. Yeah. And you also love people. He loves his children, that's a given, but he also loved people. And one thing I'll say this about daddy. He always used to say to me, boy, I help so much people and I can't help my own son. But daddy's helping me more now than ever before, based on how I remember him being patient with me and being very, very understanding of my inability to behave. So yes, I would say that at an end.
That's what you call a legacy, Bert. When someone is helping you, they're not even here yet. That is true meaning of a legacy.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we want to thank the countless educators, healthcare workers, counselors, parents, guardians who sacrifice their time to serve others, many times with little and sometimes no pay. We say thank you for planting your seed of paying forward.